Hi, I'm Andrew Smith, OpenSlate's Chief Product Officer, and I'm joining you today to talk about the past, present, and future of content targeting and digital advertising. Content targeting is one of the hottest topics in our industry, and for good reason. The much discussed decline of identity-based targeting has led advertisers to look at content-based approaches as a privacy-centric evolution of their ad strategies, putting content at the center of how advertisements are targeted. Additionally, the content that brands choose to support has been a central part of their social responsibility efforts, accelerated by the movements of the COVID-19 pandemic. So where advertisements appear has never been more top of mind. And another factor is the rapid evolution of content formats and consumption habits, with new social media platforms constantly emerging, and the rapid shift of video content from traditional channels into on-demand platforms of all kinds. The future of content targeting offers the ability to stitch together and unify a fragmented media ecosystem. The journey started way back in the 1990s. Content targeting was spawned in the early days of the internet, the very moment when the first ads were bought and sold. Advertisers targeted content at the website domain level with rudimentary controls that supported section and keyword targeting at best. The act of selecting what websites to run on or not run on was a content-based decision and was really the only way to target an ad. This lives on today with block lists, allow lists, and other holdovers from these formative years. The first decade of the 2000s saw monumental shifts in how content-based advertising was bought and sold, and importantly, the launch of the media formats that underpin so much of our digital world today. This decade marked the emergence of social media and digital video, with YouTube notably launching their first ad product in the summer of 2006. We saw the birth of programmatic advertising, and automated content controls became available with greater degrees of sophistication by the end of the decade. The 2010s was the decade of content-based technologies erupting across the advertising world, growing by leaps and bounds. By the middle of the decade, technologies came to the fore that ingested and categorized large swaths of content across the web and social video. As these technologies grew, so did the nature of content. The eruption of brand unsafe, user-generated content triggered immediate demands from marketers for increasing brand protections. This transformed into a more nuanced brand suitability strategy by the end of this decade. Which brings us to today. We're at the golden era of content-based advertising, with a broad palette of solutions available to marketers and a decades-long technology that is underpinned by a privacy-centric methodology. And at its core, when we think about targeting content, this means using unique content ideas as the primary addressable mechanism to deliver an ad. This can be a URL, a video ID, a creator's channel, a podcast episode, or any address where content lives. This is an important distinction because today, so much of the industry is looking towards new identifiers, given that using device ID and browser cookies is going away. Content offers a persistent ID that isn't tied to a person, their device, or their household. This provides a mechanism to reach people through advertising without transacting on personal identifiers, and from there you can build a sense of who that person is by understanding the content environment they're currently consuming. In other words, content identifiers are the key to unlocking the full context in which your advertisement appears. Let's take a look at the full contextual picture through the lens of content targeting. First, there's brand safety. It's one of the most basic content targeting products, but ensuring that advertisers aren't associated with content espousing hate speech, violent crime, and other sensitive subjects has never been more of a hot-button issue. Most advertisers agree that this type of content is harmful for their brand, but they're searching for standards. Thankfully, we have the leadership of the 4As and the World Federation of Advertisers who are pursuing safety standards in the form of the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, or GARM, framework. Then there's brand suitability. This is kind of like a curious cousin to brand safety. Targeting suitable content is totally subjective, and that's the point. Content that's suitable for brand A might be totally different for brand B. Let's say a brand has a product recall that's getting a lot of negative press, or doesn't jive with video game content, or thinks the world of ASMR is just a bit too weird. Suitability is a palette of levers that can define the do's and don'ts for a specific brand. The 800-pound gorilla is subject matter. It's what most people think of when they think of content targeting. Aligning with relevant content subject matter is an incredibly important consideration in advertising. For example, in a recent OpenSlate study, we looked at people's reactions to ads to see whether subject matter relevance had an impact. Ads appearing next to relevant content received the same level of cognitive attention as ads appearing next to non-relevant content. But when the subject matter of the ads and the content were misaligned, the ads were rated as less liked, less relevant, less engaging, and more intrusive. Another huge dimension to content targeting is the creator. Where did a piece of content come from? Who created it? And by extension, who are the fans and followers that are so passionate about the creator? Vibrant communities focused around influencers and the content they produce can be a hugely impactful place for advertising to appear. The fandom, background, and point of view of a creator often weigh in on a brand's investment decisions. Is this creator and their content aligned with my brand's principles? And even more importantly, what creators have I overlooked that deserve my brand's support? Last but certainly not least, we have seen that quality emerge as the next big thing in content-based advertising. Quality is perhaps the most sophisticated of content signals and can include many attributes such as audience engagement with content, freshness of content, number of followers, screen clutter, and other metrics. All rolled up to give the advertisers the basic idea of whether or not their ads are running in a clean, well-lit environment. Looking back from where we've come in almost 30 years of content targeting technology and the broad variety of solutions available today, there's certainly an interesting future ahead. We expect that media and content will continue to get more diversified and more complex. There's also the evolution of our rights as digital citizens. Understanding and controlling our privacy is now a real possibility. And as an advertising community, we can look towards content targeting as a way to demonstrate our commitment to an ethical approach to advertising, both in supporting the content and creators that are aligned to our values and in respecting the individual's right to privacy. Looking at the path we've traveled, the technologies we've built, and where we are today as a society, the road ahead is clear. The future of content targeting will bring greater transparency, uniformity, and social responsibility to the world of advertising.